Welcome to your Conscious Choices for Wellness podcast, hosted by B. Crutelli. This is a space for everyone to learn anything and everything related to healthy healing, including naturopathic medicine, music, dance, yoga, meditation, eco-fashion, mothering, and organic lifestyle choices. Topics for expanding universal consciousness. Come join me weekly as we delve in and begin this journey, sharing valuable content gathered over the past 3 decades, helping to support a healthier and more sustainable future for all. Hello and welcome, beautiful souls out there. I really wish I could just see you all and connect with you. I am going to put my glasses on here in a minute when I start gathering in my blog, because if you know, I write on my Substack, which is where I'm keeping my blog at the moment. And then just have to tell you, I'm a one-woman show. I don't have any support at this time. I do see myself someday having a support team where I can do more, and this will be, maybe quote unquote more professional for you. But as of right now, I'm just, trying to make this work, trying to live my passion, doing what I love, because I don't want to work for anybody corporate. I don't want to work for anybody that I don't believe in, that's not paying me enough. I believe I have a lot of knowledge to share, and I really just am here as a service and to help other people, to inspire you, to bring knowledge and to have fun, And I just want to be transparent as to where I'm at in the moment, in the middle of don't know where I'm going to live, don't know, this year's really been crazy. I'm in the midst of writing my book called 31, and it has to do with 31 moves. And I thought it would really help me by writing a book about all the moves that I've done over the years, because it got to be about a year ago, I was thinking, wow, this is going on 31 moves in 31 years. And I thought, that's a fucking lot. I don't think there's many people out there that have moved 31 times in 31 years, especially having 4 kids, running businesses, doing all these things, and just living in California and how crazy it's gotten. And I have not been the one of the, fortunate people that have been able to buy property. And I think if I would have been able to buy property, things would be different, but they're not. And now it's like you have to have $100,000 in the bank to buy a piece of property, with any kind of home on it that may still be a fixer-upper to be able to afford the mortgage, right? Or even to be able to qualify these days. So I just want to be transparent. I am house sitting right now for some friends of mine. I'm very grateful to be here. And I am in the midst of looking for my next home. I have been looking since the spring, and I thought I found something, but it ended up not being the right situation. So I am continuing my journey to look, and I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I am still trying to keep the podcast going. I'm going to have a guest here in a couple of weeks who I'm very excited about, somebody I've known for a very long time from back in the days when I had my green living store. And I will maybe mention that again at the end of the podcast. But every week I don't know, what I'm writing about next, because there's so many topics that I'm passionate about. And it came to me, it usually comes to me closer to the weekend, the week before. So like last weekend, it came to me, not until Sunday, I was like, okay, I'm going to write about this, because there were 2 signs that were given to me during the week. One was, it wasn't even a podcast. I was just listening to Democracy Now!, which I try to listen to only a couple of times a week now, because it's just so intense. I have to protect my energy of what's going on out there. But I was fortunate enough to listen to one of her episodes that I think it was on like Wednesday, probably last week, that had nothing to do with Israel, had Palestine, had nothing to do with you know who and our fucked up government. But actually, it did kind of have to do with our fucked up government, but it was more about animal justice. And she was interviewing someone that had just recently released his book that I will link here in the show notes that I will mention about animal rights, about what is happening out there with animals, okay? And there's many kinds of animals, but I'm talking about domesticated animals that we have here in the U.S., specifically speaking to the United States, because that's where I live. And this is something that really touches my heart on a deep, deep level, because I had become an animal activist back in my teens many years ago. I'll just say like 35 years ago. I really, wanted to change my diet back when I was 16. I knew I needed to be healthier. I had in my heart, somehow was just planted in my heart, that I wanted to help protect animals, that I cared about what was happening to them, and that I cared about the environment. And I didn't even know, how much it was infecting. That just came out. Wanted to say affecting, but yes, infecting our planet. What's happening with the animals and how they're treated, and how it's really not even food. It's very sad that people call most of the meat that is out there in the world, in our society, I'll just say in our local society, our world at large, the United States of America, it's really not even food. It's like probably harming you more to ingest these animals than it is helping you. And I'm not going to go into too much detail today, but I called my blog Animal Love. This goes way back. All sentient beings deserve respect, okay? They just do. We're all connected. And I have Native American blood. The Native Americans, when they had to hunt for meat to sustain them, they did not do so on a daily basis. They probably did it, 2 or 3 times a year. And they would, capture, one animal that would last them a very long time, right? It wasn't like they were constantly killing animals and massacring them or torturing them, or, it was to survive, right? And that's not what's happening. We're far beyond survival at this time. When there's like world hunger that is at large, and people in the streets that cannot eat, and it's like, I used to have, this just came to me, a really hard time. And this wasn't even a restaurant that served meat. This was a restaurant in San Francisco. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was connected to Hotel California. And they ended up closing down, but then they reopened in the East Bay. It'll come to me at some point in the podcast. But it was a vegan, the Millennium. I think it was called the Millennium. And it was a vegan restaurant that was to die for. It was like a gourmet, organic, sustainable, vegan type restaurant, kind of like Cafe Gratitude. But it was like cooked stuff and very, very gourmet. So this place was set in a location in the city, I'm talking about San Francisco, that wasn't, San Francisco is like, it's kind of interesting the way it's set up, but I believe it was like on Geary or Van Ness. I think it was on Geary. And, definitely now it's probably even worse off, because back then the city was really a lot safer place to be, and there wasn't as many homeless as there is now. It's gotten to be quite an issue in the last decade. And there was this homeless man that was always there every time I would go there. And it was just for special occasions because it was a very expensive restaurant. But a friend and I, a friend of mine and I would really like to go there because this is when we were strict vegans and, we just loved this place. And when we would eat there, there was always this one homeless guy who was standing outside, and my friend always had cash falling out of her purse, her bag. And so she would, constantly be like giving her money away to the homeless on the street. And it was really hard for me to sit there, though. I didn't like to sit by the window because when you would be by the window and you'd be sitting outside, it just felt so imbalanced to be having this, $100 meal. And then there's someone outside that has nothing, and that is trying to get his next $2 meal or whatever at the time. It's like, it just didn't sit well with me. And it was really hard to be there and to have that contrast. And it's not even like I had a ton of money. I just like to splurge. I like to spoil myself. I like to eat good food. I'm a total foodie. And, I was probably going in debt doing it. I don't even know, but it's just something that I've always loved to do. When I go to LA a couple times a year to visit my son, I love to go to some of the best places. I mean, probably not the best, but some of the really, quite, posh, sustainable, farm to table type restaurants in LA. There's many now. There didn't used to be that many. And I used to like judge them and be like, I can't believe that we've got like so much up here and why aren't they on board down there? Have this story of like when I had my store, probably like 10, 15 years, it was probably more like 15 years ago. I was down at the LA Green Fest. They had a green festival there. And it was so different than the one that we had in San Francisco, which like the main one was in San Francisco, I believe. And even the New York City one I went to, and it was just not like San Francisco. And I thought, wow, I'm really blessed to live in this area because we're just so on top of it. And we just, know so much about what's happening. And we're, just cutting edge sustainability here. And, maybe we were, and maybe we really influenced Los Angeles and some other big cities in America to follow. Because I believe San Francisco was one of the first green cities, and then I think Portland and, many others followed after. But anyhow, I just want to talk about animals a little bit today and bring some awareness around what's happening, give you a couple of references. That one is a movie. I'm sure there's other movies as well, and I know there's other movies as well, and maybe I'll throw those in the show notes. But also just speak to what's happening with the animals and what we're putting in our bodies. We need to think about what we're consuming, right? And if we want to be more peaceful, if we want to bring more balance to the craziness and chaos that's happening, the war, there's war on so many levels happening right now, then we really need to think about everything that we're doing, everything that we're contributing to, okay? Because our government in this country is so fucked up, and even on the level of the food system, highly on the level of the food system. And that's really how they can control us more than you even know. Because what we consume in our bodies is going to reflect who we are. It's going to reflect how we feel on a daily. It's going, on a physical level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level, on so many levels. What we eat as food, quote unquote food, is really who we are. And I'm going to say the saying, which is true from back in the day. I don't know who made the quote, but what you eat is what you are, who you are. Okay? It's a reflection. So animal love this podcast, this blog was inspired from my last weekend. I had an interesting, like I said before that, I listened to something on one of my favorite shows with Amy Goodman. She was interviewing this man that did this book. And I would highly recommend looking into that, even if you can just read a little bit of it. And I think it needs to be made in an audio version, I'm hoping. But over the weekend, I had an interesting conversation also with a friend about animal justice. And this is an ongoing, simple yet complex subject, okay? It's also an immense one, to say the least, if you have any compassion at all. Like I've expressed before, I'm an emotionally defined empath. I deeply feel what others are feeling and thus need to create boundaries within myself to protect my energy. It's vital for me to make conscious daily decisions, choices on my actions. Like, how will this choice to fulfill this need affect other life? That's what I'm speaking to. Even the animals, the other living beings, not just the humans, but all life. Okay? All life, the organisms in the ground, the water that we're drinking, that we want to swim in, that we want to have access to, nature, it's all affected by our choices that we make daily. And yes, one of the main examples of a daily need is what we eat. What we consume for nourishment is such a huge choice, not just for our own health, but also how our choices affect the earth and other species along the way. Most of us are walking around the planet unconscious, blinded to how every choice we make affects the collective whole. From our thoughts to what we consume. Consumption is a broad term, and what we choose to listen to, watch, feel, ingest, even touch are all avenues of consuming inward and projecting outwards as well. About a decade ago now, I made what I felt was a conscious choice to start eating high-quality animal meats, not including pork. I have not eaten any pork since I was 15 or 16, and that was bacon probably, was the only kind of pork I ate a few times as a kid. Now, such as cow, chicken, and fish is what I'm speaking to. And the only reason I did this, after being veg for over 20 years, was to gain back my physical health, which had gone astray by consuming too many carbs. I probably didn't know what I was doing to the level I do now, and was, having kids and raising kids. Of course, kids want to eat sugar, and I was trying to get that under control because I had learned about, my kids' health. That's how I learned about health and how I was really motivated about learning more and more about health, was wanting my kids to be healthy. And them struggling with the things that they struggled with inspired me to fix my own health even more. But because I was coming from being a child of being so sick and having a destroyed gut from taking way too many antibiotics as a kid, I had developed Candida. Now, I will just touch a little bit on Candida. It is overgrowth of yeast. We all have yeast in our bodies, but it can get out of control, and it feeds on sugar. So the more sugar, the more carbs you eat that turn into sugar, it's going to feed the Candida, and the Candida is eventually going to get out of control, and you're going to have symptoms that are not pleasant, okay, to say the least. And so I was dealing with this quite a bit in my late 30s, early 40s, especially my late 30s, and just really suffering. And I couldn't take, hardcore medications for it because it just, I can't do synthetic medication antibiotics, all that stuff. I won't do. I won't. And so I was desperate. I was like, oh my God. And then everything I read was like the Candida diet to starve the Candida was consuming meat, consuming eggs. Eggs were okay, which I didn't love eggs. I never did. I didn't even eat eggs until I was in my 30s. So I was like, okay. And, plain yogurt. So I really, still to this day have plain yogurt in my diet every day. But plain yogurt, sometimes I'll eat the coconut yogurt, which is great. It's a little more expensive, but either one, you can make live coconut yogurt that has similar bacteria as the dairy yogurt. Not going to get into, I get segued so much, but I learned certain things. The only two fruits that I could eat were grapefruit and Granny Smith apples. Apples that have like little sugar that are sour. Grapefruits have little sugar, they're sour. These were things, and grapefruit seed extract is very good for healing Candida and killing off the Candida. So I got on this whole Candida diet thing for a few years and was really like trying to heal my gut, and learned that fungi was actually good for Candida, not bad. I always thought, I can't eat any mushrooms or fungi. But there are lots that are very actually good. That's when I learned, all that. I've spoken about that before on a previous podcast. Probably the microbiome healing one that I did. You can look that up if this speaks to you. I just, was really struggling though, that it was like, all the meat was good, meat was all good, and I'm like, dang. And it was like, because a lot of the protein that you get from a vegetarian diet wasn't high quality, or it actually was feeding the Candida. And so it was, and the reason why, because if you think of nuts and grains, okay, those were two types of protein. Well, nuts and grains can actually have mold in them. And even, cheese, which has protein, can have mold, So there are a lot of things that can have mold, and mold, obviously, you don't want excess mold. That's like what the fungus, not the healthy fungi, but the bad fungi, or Candida, it's like a type of mold. And so I struggled with this, like I said, for a few years, and I, was with a partner at the time. Most of the men I've been with have been meat eaters, and he was like, "Come on, you should just try to eat this burger, this grass-fed burger. You would buy this high quality, meat that was all, sustainably raised, grass-fed, whatever." And I was like, and I remember taking like my first bite of some kind of tenderloin steak that he made or something. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a bite. And I was like, and it was just so weird to me. And then at Thanksgiving that year, I freaked my whole family out. And because I, made them get a free range turkey, and, there was no way I was going to sit at a table with anything else. And I was like, okay, watch everybody. I'm going to take a bite of this turkey, and I hadn't probably did that since I was a kid. And it was just, it was an interesting journey, but you know what it did? It helped me. I haven't for 10 years now had any kind of Candida infection. So it did help. But I have struggled with consuming meat, period. Like I'm not attracted to it. I am a type A blood, which means I am the type of blood that does best being a vegetarian. And I don't like having to kill an animal or any other sentient being. Sentient beings can be plants too. And this is true. And there can be arguments around that. Oh, well, you're killing the plant, eating the plant. Okay. you can really look at that and think about that, and there is some truth to that. It's about how you do it. It's about your intention. You know, the Native Americans had ceremony and prayer and gave thanks to the animals that they had to sacrifice to eat. It's like a sacrifice, right? To take another sentient being's life to consume for your own health. And it is the process, the evolution of life, you know? But that is totally different than what is happening in our corporate, governmental, fucked up system of what is so-called food in this country. The Candida struggle is real. We go back to that. Even for a blood type A like myself, A's can comfortably live on a balanced veg diet with plenty of energy. So I didn't have a problem with energy. Like some people get sick a lot, or they just struggle with having enough energy. And a lot of times people that try to do the veg diet, it is for animal reasons, but they struggle because with their own health, because they don't know what nutrients that they need. They're not getting the proper protein, amino acids. You know, you just have to really make sure you know what you're doing. So over the past decade, my consumption has stayed very low, eating high quality meat 1 to 2 times a week, if that. And what do I mean by high quality? Well, the term for me is aimed to describe grass-fed, free-range, sustainably sourced, organically raised. That means they're eating organic grains, you know, what they're fed is certified organic, just like the other food that I'm buying is certified organic. To this day, I have not, nor will I ever again consciously consume anything less than. Now, my soulful evolutionary healing journey began at age 16, first by ending my consumption of meat. And recently, yet again, I was inspired to think twice this past week whether I even want to continue with my partial carnivorous Pesca diet. Pescatarianism is a whole nother thing, and to many may seem like a better choice for various reasons. But all I can say to that is once you watch a documentary like Seaspiracy, link in the show notes, that gives factual, informative data on the truth about eating fish, don't be blinded and think that it's all good. You all know that there's microplastics even in the air that we're breathing, but plenty of them swimming around in our ocean, which is what the fish are eating. So just one tidbit on that. If you're consuming fish every week, you're consuming plastic every week. Okay, that's just one tidbit on that. Not to mention the devastation that's happening on the sea level to all the fish that are being killed every day that don't need to be killed and that don't even get consumed because there's overfishing happening and there's not enough regulation on that. And just like what's happening with the land animals, and it's very, very sad. So there's a whole lot on that, and I'm just going to say those two things. I would highly recommend, if you do ever consume fish from our seas, to just watch Seaspiracy. For the rest of the land animals, they deserve to be treated with so much more respect. It's literally disgusting what is happening behind locked doors, and all I will say is to read the book that I mentioned. It's called Little Red Barns, Hiding the Truth from Farm to Fable. A new book exposing the landscape of the many products that we consume that are a dangerous threat to our health and to our ecosystem, affecting climate change at large. And this groundbreaking investigation exposes the powerful forces at work to hide the harms of industrial agriculture, its outsized role in the climate crisis, and its links to global rise of fascism. Yeah, It's literally disgusting, and everybody should know this hidden information that you're not going to find on any news channel, except for maybe Democracy Now! If you're someone that watches or listens. But if you missed the episode, it was on last week. You could also listen to that if you don't want to get this book or, whatever. I believe it was last Wednesday or Thursday. Amy had an episode where she interviewed the man that did the book. So in my Substack, I've got a couple photos. It's always good. I always link that in the show notes if you want to read what I'm referring to and see my blog. So what is happening within these CAFOs, which are concentrated animal feeding operations, is not okay. And most people have no clue. I tried to take a picture. I've probably done this more than once when I drive to Los Angeles and I see it's not even the poultry ones, it's the cattle. There's a couple cattle ones that are on the way to LA from Northern California. And it's like I have to hold my breath for like 2 minutes, and it's very, very difficult. It's so disgusting and sad because the cows are like standing in their own shit. They can't move. They're being forced to eat stuff they shouldn't be eating. They have their babies taken away from them. Their babies can't even be with them. And it's just pure animal cruelty, not to mention all the ones that are killed for no apparent reason, because they're being raised and then they get sick and then they're just like killed, or, they're not fit for whatever, selling. So then they just kill them, and they're being killed without even anesthesia. Okay. I'm just going to say that the book talks about that, but animals are being killed without even anesthesia. It's like literal torture. And these animals, what did they do? They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything wrong. Okay. They're brought into this world for consumption of so-called food for people, and they're being treated horribly. And you have to think about that, how they're treated, these animals, that's going into your body. If you're consuming animals that you don't know how they were raised, if you don't know, like I said, those 3 things, that they're organically raised, grass-fed, sustainable, all these things, guaranteed they're raised with torture, violence by people that are horrible beings that are supporting the rest of what's going on out there that we don't like. Okay. And that is what you don't really want to be putting in your body if you care about your body and you want to be healthier. So it's highly hidden news, covered up by large corporate interests, and yes, also the US government. Potter, the author, uncovers the frightening truth about animal agriculture's role in accelerating climate collapse. He shows how the authoritarian measures being taken to maintain control over this key aspect of the global food supply chain and directly linked to the proliferation and empowerment of far-right militias that aim to prosecute those leaking the ugly truth. So as time turns and we are constantly subject to new information, we have a choice to shift our beliefs, make change to contribute to something better, choosing more sustainable options for thyself and for the planet. We do have options. We do. Okay? And if you don't know, if you're listening to this, if you don't know what other options you have, please reach out to me. I can help you. Even homeless people on the street can make sustainable choices. I've had a few memorable encounters giving food away from a restaurant that I had just eaten at. Once I was in New York City, and it was the only time I've been in NYC, Probably 2012, 2011. I don't know. Almost 15 years ago now, a homeless man wanted my leftover kale salad. He didn't know what it was, but I didn't think he would want it. And I was walking down the street, obviously they can see when people have leftovers, and some of them, if they're really hungry and they trust you, they will take your leftovers. And he walked up to me and he wanted what I had. And I was like, oh, sure, but it's a kale salad. And he was like, I fucking love kale salad. That's my favorite. I'm a vegan. And I'm like, perfect. I was like, wow, this homeless guy's a vegan. And I was like, here you go. And I was so happy, that he was so happy. And yeah, I will never forget that story. So another time though, I had a woman, this is in Santa Cruz. I've had other people deny food, but for other reasons, but she stated that she had gotten sick too many times from people, giving her food, and she trusted that but maybe the food that they had, maybe had been sitting in her car, or I don't know, but you get food, you don't know where it came from and how it was handled or whatever, and you take it because you're hungry, and then you get really sick for a couple days. And she was just, she was an older lady. I think she'd been on the streets for a while, and she was just like, no, thank you. Maybe she did end up taking it from me because she trusted me after we spoke, but I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And it's kind of gotten to a point where I used to give food away a lot to homeless people like a decade ago. Maybe I just don't go out as much as I used to. There has been a few times recently where I'm in a place and I'm there's not homeless people, because I'm I want to give my food away. But I'm not in an area where there's just somebody homeless standing out there before I get to my car that I can give it to them. But there's been other times where I've tried to give food away, and usually to a woman, and it's she's too depressed or she's too high on something and she just doesn't want it. And she's just whatever, I don't want food, or, when you're really not feeling good, or maybe you're on something you don't want to eat, and you just, you don't want to eat, I get it. It's really sad. It's really sad. So these days we need more loving kindness, more compassion to help balance the opposite realm of disorder that's infiltrating humanity right now. One way of raising the bar over what is to create more positive vibes for yourself and for those around you. And this includes the animals, this includes nature, this includes everything that we're connected to. Sharing, being kind, and showing compassion for all sentient beings are simple ways that we can raise the collective consciousness for our future generations. And don't we all just really want to be a part of creating a more conscious world for the ones that we are leaving behind? Thank you. Thank you for being here with me today. I really do love and appreciate all of you. I love it and appreciate everybody out there that is doing good in this world, that is making change happen. Thank you so much. And I am going to have a guest on finally in a couple of weeks. Her name's Mira, and she is a conscious creator, artist, and a mother of four like myself. And that's all I'm going to say for now. But that episode will come out maybe 3 weeks from now. We'll be recording in 2 weeks, and I'm very excited about that. What else is on the horizon? I'm just trusting and flowing with life, really, because I don't know what the fuck is happening for my next chapter at the moment. I don't know where I'm going to be living. I'm like freed up for the first time of being a mom and needing to be present for a child. I've been a mom for over 30 years, and I am officially an empty nester. Just this year, that's transforming in the past few months. And so I'm just like, okay, like if I do go somewhere else, am I going to work? Do I have enough to financially sustain myself and be behind the scenes and not actually be planted somewhere? I'm just trying to find out what I want to create, who I want to create it with. I have some ideas. I really want to collaborate. Yeah, maybe I'll even do like a little episode on my ultimate dream and collaboration of what I see for the future. Really want to get the fuck out of this country too, honestly. I see that coming in my future. Starting to travel. I'm going to definitely travel next summer to Europe. I have mainly European blood, a little bit of Native American, but I'm mainly European, and I am itching to go over there the last couple of years. And so I am just very excited about the future. I try not to worry about it. I know there's lots of good shit happening, and we are going to get through this. Okay. Please check out my products on my website if you want to know other things that I'm working on. I'm doing a couple of markets this winter locally here, right outside of San Francisco, and I will be selling my wares there and hopefully networking and connecting with other conscious souls that want more of what I'm offering. And I will put a link in the show notes to that. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful October. Oh my God, today is the 1st of October. I forgot to mention that. Here we are. We're in fall, and it rained here the last couple of days. We're getting an early one coming in because usually it's Indian summer here, and we're still having weather in the 70s and the 80s. The 70s are coming back in, but we did get our first rains early. So there you go. Love and peace. Bye. Woo, it ended up being a long one. Thank you all so very much for listening today. I genuinely hope that you learned something, and I invite you to join me each week so you never miss a conscious wellness beat. This podcast holds a special place in my heart dedicated to my evolution here, my passionate mission to spread more consciousness for the much needed wellness on Earth. Come join me as a guest as well. Let's collaborate, making change for future generations.